So, hey everybody, my name is Jared Malott, and this is my good friend Mateo and this is the Coltist, your favorite Indianapolis Colts, Indiana Pacers podcast. During the NFL season, you'll see a podcast a week. Continue that through the NBA season until they stop playing. There's a little
Mhm.
moratorium in the summer where we really only got nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
Like today, the Pacers are what, a couple weeks still from
Yeah, still a
their
couple of
preseason
weeks. I
even
believe
starting,
it's
so
yeah.
there's not much to talk about for the Pacers. But them Colts, boy, I
Yeah,
tell
there
you
is
what.
something to talk about.
And this will be season 2, episode 3, aka I was thinking about the Matt Gay coming out
Yeah,
party,
it has to be. Yeah,
but
it has to be the Matt Gay.
I don't think it could you could put all them words in there and not offend some people. So
Yeah,
yeah,
so it's the
it's
Matt Gay party. Let's just call it that
yeah.
way. I don't care. Like one hell of a game. Especially, we
Absolutely.
were talking about it in the Discord chat. 2 years from, do you remember that Ravens overtime loss at Baltimore where Carson Wentz put up like 400 yards
Yeah.
and Rodrigo Blankenship missed like two crucial kicks? And we lost that one back when we were looking like really good with Carson Wentz, and we lost that one.
Hmm.
So yes, this sort of feels like a redemption game where we lost that game because of the kicker, and now we win because of like you can't have a better game if you're the kicker. Talk
Hmm.
about making four 50-yard field goals, the game tying
NFL
field goal
record.
with NFL record. You make the game tying field goal with just under a minute remaining, then you go out in overtime and you get the game winning kick. And that's also over 50 yards. And it's just amazing, and it speaks volumes to how Matt Gay is performing, highest contract in NFL free agent history for a kicker.
Hmm.
And he goes out and starts 3 games. He's perfect so far from the field, made all his kicks, all his extra points. And now
Hmm.
you go out and you put up a performance like it. That has to be. I've been watching the Colts for something like 10 to 12 years.
Hmm.
That is perhaps the best performance I've ever seen from a kicker. Like the most
Yeah.
game defining. Like the Colts lose this game with an average kicker. Like
Yeah.
they lose it. It's not even close. And you win it because you have one of the best kickers in the NFL. And that's, just feels so, it feels great. This is just an amazing win.
Right. It's kind of one of those wins you didn't expect to come home with,
Yeah.
right? The first of all, you're playing on the road, right? We've talked about before. Uh, Before COVID, home field advantage was super relevant. Something like 63% of winners in NFL games were home teams. COVID has changed that. Now it's about 53%. So it's down about 10% less chance that the home team wins. So it's kind of diminished that home field advantage. Add to that, they're kind of playing in drizzly weather, right? It wasn't sunny and dry,
Yeah.
which means that it was probably slick and probably the ball is not really easy to handle. But the Colts go out and, like you said, do just enough, both offensively and defensively, to win a road game in inclement weather against an AFC stalwart with arguably one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history on the opposing team anyway.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'll look at this game. You win this game because of Matt Gay, and you did not turn the ball over, right?
Yeah.
You did most of what you have to do. There was some drops, there was some
Yeah, there
handoffs
were. Yeah.
by Gardner Minshew where I was like, you just handed that off and it was like 7-on-9. And that was a terrible handoff. You should have pulled that ball and thrown it. Um, but other than that, other than handing the ball off, Gardner Minshew made a lot of really good decisions. There were some drops.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like Alec Pierce and his role is sort of diminishing, and Josh Downs has become the number 2 receiver pretty quickly, um, which is good. That just means that your rookies are
Yeah.
balling out. And I noticed Juju Brents played today and got a fumble recovery.
Yeah. And he
Um,
had, he had an amazing, like, I believe we don't know this for sure, but it is kind of like suppose that Darrell Baker Jr., the starting cornerback once the season started,
Hmm.
he got benched and he was a healthy scratch because if you look at it last week against the Texans, the Colts play a soft zone and he was coming in soft in some of those tackle attempts.
Hmm.
He was clearly not giving it his all, and that is a no from the Colts. And Juju Brents, like you watch him and he's coming hot for those tackles. Like he's making an effort. He's big, he's physical. He had an amazing game. He got the first fumble, a couple of big hits, sorry, here and there.
Yeah.
So overall, just an amazing game. Like for Juju Brents, for Josh Downs, like they played some really good football. And yeah,
Hey.
like you said, it kind of sucks for Alec Pierce. He also had that. I don't know if you watched it, like the dropped deep ball
On the left side,
before the game time field goal. Where I was like, damn, man, you
you
gotta
need to come
catch
down
that.
with that.
Like
Yeah.
you are the 50-50 guy. The ball is right on your hands. You gotta catch that. And he dropped it, and that would have been the game. So I'm expecting him to be better, but yeah,
Michael
it is
Pittman
what it is.
Jr.
I mean, we
had
won.
the reverse jump man uh catch with two guys on him, two guys pulling his
Yeah,
helmet off. Surprised there wasn't a penalty for that too. Zaire Franklin had 15 total tackles today, brother.
yeah,
Uh Julian Blackman had 12. Um and like we said, when you don't turn the ball over and then the game kind of game ending plays was Michael Pittman Jr.'s catch on the Colts drive to equalize. And then Kenny Moore on that ball over the middle. And when you watch the replay, you could just see Kenny Moore's hand bat the ball away. And you're like, wow, like, hey, these are your big time players in big time games making big time plays. And you needed that to sort of pay you off for the Matt Gay bet,
Mhm.
right? Like Colts bet big on who, when they signed him, was the most consistent kicker in NFL history at that time. And then, like you said, has come in and been perfect so far. I mean, that's why you pay him all that money. Um, the way I perceive this, um, teams aren't able to defensively pressure ball carriers and skill players like they want. So they're forced into that zone and there to limit the after the catch. And when you really think about, you know, Baltimore's offense is supposed to be really
Yeah,
tough to defend because they sort of have the RPO is sort of baked in, right? At any point, um, Lamar can just take off and there was plenty of times where he drops back, surveys, rolls a little, and just tucks it and goes, and you're like,
yeah,
oh yeah, tell me you don't want an athlete at quarterback. Everybody's covered. What's the guy with no legs doing? You know what I mean? Like, um, he extends drives. And again, it's very endemic when you watch the Colts offense and you see how kind of anemic it was today. Hey, we're really missing our Pro Bowl center running back and this new rookie quarterback that we have. That I think he reads a couple of those downhill runs a little differently and maybe pulls it and has the edge and again can keep a drive alive. But one of the things I definitely noticed, I'm excited to get anybody else here in and have them run, is the Colts still have ball carriers running into the back of guys with the same color
yeah,
jersey on with their head down. And it's just like, hey, I hate to be the guy that's saying, I want all these guys to get paid, but I don't want the guy to get paid that runs with his head down into the back of his own jerseys and doesn't get any yards,
yeah. You don't
right?
want that.
Instead of lowering your base, making a decision and try to get around the pile, right? You would rather see that than just see a guy just tuck it. You know what I mean? Like I'll just take whatever I can get out of this push, right? That's almost never the play. But and you're only going to really see that when the quarterback is not a runner.
Yeah,
Gardner Minshew is not a runner of football. He's handing that every time. Um, and that is exactly why you look for a prospect like Anthony Richardson, is because we're light in the ass at running back. We don't have the personnel necessary to run this offense. You're going to have somebody else carry the ball on rundowns. I don't think Can you rely on Zach Moss for 30
Mm,
carries a game?
I mean, he was solid tonight, today, sorry, but I don't think you can. Like, I wouldn't sleep peacefully knowing, like, hey, he's your number one back and he's gonna get 30 carries a game.
Yeah.
I mean, he's good. Like, I really like him saying, not running back by committee, but like as a complimentary back to a guy like JT.
Hmm.
But he was okay today. Like, he was
Yeah.
really good, and so I'm happy with that. But you just the thing that happened to me, these first 3 weeks is just I'm constantly thinking like, imagine this with JT in the mix. Like, imagine Anthony Richardson with JT and with Zach Moss not getting 30 carries, just getting 10,
Yeah.
7 to 10. He's gonna make it even like he's going to make an even bigger impact on the field with less carries.
Yeah.
And you sort of like, hey, let's rebuild this bridge. Let's get him back out there on the field and with these young guys. And who knows, like after today, I might be a tad too optimistic, but I'm thinking playoffs. Like I look at the rest of the schedule and I'm like, we might be able to sneak in there, considering how the rest of the AFC is doing.
Yeah.
I think like, hey, perhaps who says no? We could be there. We have
Yeah.
a good defense. We have good special teams. Our offense should be like, if you put JT in that offense, I'm thinking playoffs.
I wouldn't even need to go that far to say, hey, this is enough of a foundational kind of win for a season where guy like Ryan Kelly comes back next week.
Yeah,
Hey, offensive line might look a little better, right? I mean, and then it's looking a lot like, week 5 it is, where you might actually see Anthony Richardson and JT at the same time. If obviously if healthy, and there's a lot of things. But yeah, Zach Moss had 30 carries for 122 yards. Uh, with respect to Gus Edwards and Melvin Gordon, combined 21 carries for 83 yards and less than 4 yards a carry. So obviously, when we talk about how this game went down, the Colts contained everybody but Lamar Jackson. Said he's just going to have to beat us on his own.
yeah,
And
yeah. And he's the type of player where you're like, when he beats you on the ground, you're like, hey, what are you gonna do? But like, it's
right.
gonna happen. You're
Yep.
playing such a talented player,
Hmm.
such a
He's going to
talented
get
quarterback.
his.
You're like, yeah, he's gonna get his. Like, you're not gonna contain him all game long. He's gonna get a couple on you. You just
Yep.
want to limit his impact.
Yep.
And again,
Limit those long
yeah,
plays. 16 yards was the longest run for Baltimore. It's like I said, they limited their ground game, and whatever that looks like at the end of the game, still is 37 carries for 186 yards, which is 5 yards a carry and 2 touchdowns. So it's like, hey, they just didn't have 400 yards today. You know what I mean? Like, and like I said, those two turnovers, those two big time plays are the difference. For the longest time, this was a game of inches,
yeah.
right? Uh, Miami scoring 70 points today. Uh,
Damn. Like, do you do you even start considering firing Sean Payton at this point? Like 70 points, that's that's not good.
Arizona has beaten Dallas.
Yeah.
But this was a day that not only did the Colts win, and we got to talk about when this happens because this doesn't happen all the time. You know what I mean? Like Colts have been in some murky water as a franchise for years. Let me explain it like this: the Colts win. This was an upset road win against the playoff AFC Championship contender. Like this is what
Yeah.
I expected one of the 4 remaining teams in the AFC. Okay, so this is a big road win. On the same day that the Colts get a big road win against the Baltimore Ravens, the Browns beat the Titans 27-3. So a division foe almost gets shut out by Cleveland of all teams in the NFL. And then also on the same day that get a big road upset, another division team gets thumped. what is presumed to be the other worst team in your division, which by the way, the Colts were supposed to be pretty bad. The Texans beat the Jags, who are supposed to be your division winner, by 20
Yeah.
points today. So it's like tons of good news. Obviously, if you were expecting that CJ Stroud was going to just be a complete dumpster fire, I hate to poo-poo that. He set a lot of records for that franchise today. Um, but yeah, this tells me if you could beat the Ravens, you could beat just about anybody. Obviously,
Yeah.
the Chiefs who won their game 41-3, right?
Yeah, that's a bit
So
that might be a bit
anytime
too
you see somebody
optimistic.
score a bunch of points, that would concern me if I'm the Colts. Hey, a real high scoring offense is going to give you fits because we're going to have trouble keeping up like that. You can't have your kicker going 5 for 5 from field goal land, right? You need him chipping in extra points. We need to score touchdowns, baby. But yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. It's 41-10 was that Chiefs Bears final. But I bring them up the 70 points scored by Miami, this 41-10 thumping the Chiefs put on, because that's what you got to look for the Colts now. Now you need to see the Colts score some points in a win. Because winning 22-19 in overtime is not that's not good for the old
Yeah,
ticker
it's not
tape. You
good.
know, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you want to see some
Um,
points,
you need to see some points.
but
Obviously, you'll take a win when you can get it.
yeah,
Right?
obviously, especially playing away from home. But I think you just like I'm praying, I'm saying, please, JT, come back to this team because
Right.
Shane Steichen's showing he's a really good head coach.
Hmm.
I mean, anytime you plan your offense around a dynamic quarterback like Anthony Richardson, and he goes down, and Gardner Minshew comes in, and Gardner Minshew, he was not. I mean, of course, you're not expecting MVP level play from him. You're not expecting above average
Nice. Hold
quarterback
your head
play.
above water, buddy.
Yeah, he comes in, he gets those completions. He doesn't turn the ball over. He looks, cool and composed in the pocket. He's leading the team. You can see him like he's vocal, and I believe the announcer said without Ryan Kelly, Gardner Minshew was in charge of calling the protections and calling the offensive line schemes,
Hmm.
and that shows, in my opinion, that shows that Shane Steichen, without his starting quarterback and the guy he's planning the entire offense around, he can keep the ship like sailing. That's a good
Hmm.
leader, in my opinion. Like anytime you lose your starting quarterback and the team's, continues performing, of
Yeah.
course the offense is gonna struggle a little bit more without a guy like Anthony Richardson. But when the team continues being effective, that's a sign of a good head coach. And I'm just saying, like, hey, imagine what Steichen could do with Anthony Richardson, with Jonathan Taylor, Zach Moss, Michael Pittman, Jelani Woods, who also should be returning, perhaps. I believe he's supposed to return after week 8,
Uh-huh.
dealing with a hamstring injury. And you're just like, hey, once we get everyone back in the mix, like the offense gonna be able to put up 30 consistently, perhaps.
Which it
So
which it
now,
start it's
it's
starting to
just
make sense why uh Jonathan Taylor wanted a pay raise. Um like I said, it looked like to me when a guy like Zach Moss can have the day he had against that defense, it's like, oh, I'm starting to understand why Jonathan Taylor wanted a pay raise because if he's a step faster, whatever. Okay, so then the Colts do put up the points that we're talking about, blow this team out, and are 3-0 right now, right? And then you're signing him for big bucks anyway. Um, so I'm actually fine with him keeping some miles off the tires. We got to figure out what else we got. Got to win tough road games like this anyway. You know, everybody preaches like next man up. It's just like you said, it's very difficult to do that. I think center is the most important position because that guy has to snap the ball. That has to be perfect every time. And then that guy
yeah,
also has
and
to
it
hit
showed, and it
somebody.
showed today,
Yeah.
what are gonna happen when like the Ravens backup center, they were not getting that exchange correctly,
Hmm.
and it showed, like they
Hmm.
exactly as you were saying, like you couldn't agree more.
Right. It usually it happens, but in my here limited experience, for those of you that have been following along, I am helping to build a brand new high school football program. When we started, we only had like 4 players, right? One of them's a dedicated quarterback, so now we really only got 3 people. So everybody else had to learn how to snap the ball, right? Somebody's got to be the center. You
Yeah.
got the quarterback guy. Um, and there were a couple like we right away, one of those 4 people was a long snapper, but not the center, right? There's a difference. Um, so yeah, when it comes to uh your offensive success, Ryan Kelly's presence, I'm willing to bet most of the time when the Colts win, and when he's not, they probably are losing. And like you said, with him giving the protection call at the line of scrimmage, um, that typically is going to take away from your offense the next week when he's out and you don't have your starting quarterback in there. And so, like you said, now your backup is having to call protection at the line of scrimmage, which is not what you normally are doing, right? It just tells you that you've got to have a contingency plan. And I was actually having this discussion at class today. I'm still in school. I'm getting a degree in analytics, and we were talking about we're talking about data governance, about how you manage data. And ultimately, that's kind of what
Yeah.
we're doing when you're talking about it's all managed data. The good players have a lot of data. The players that don't play much don't create much data, right? Um, so yeah, it tells me that Shane Steichen's a great teacher because he had to teach people that don't normally make those decisions. It's not how our team runs. That there's other ways to do it, and you got to have a contingency plan. For example, when I got into coaching, my wife bought me a Microsoft Surface. So I call plays just like they do on NFL teams.
Yeah.
Um, I always have backups on backups on backups. So I have the same sheet, and I use like an Excel sheet. I have the same Excel sheet on my phone, and I also print it out and I put one in one folder and one in another. So it's like even if I lose a folder, I got another copy in another folder. I got it on my phone if that goes dead. And again, that's the paper. And then obviously I always try to make sure I got my Microsoft Surface. So you see, I got plans on plans on plans, but I'm still going to be able to execute my offense the same way. It's just a different way to read it off. You know what I mean? So you could imagine that you got to be able to put all these pieces into play and then manage them in
Yeah.
contest, like during the game. Um, and yeah, it feels like the Colts have more than what we were kind of promised, right? We talked about it a lot, what were we, 4-12-1 last year. Um, most teams, if they're gonna improve, the most they improve is by about 4 games, 4.5, which would put the Colts right at about 9 games, would be like their peak.
Yeah.
Typically, year to year, that's about as good as it's going to get. So for everybody at home that was like, didn't he just say, you just said something about the Colts making the playoffs? Right. This would be the Colts maximizing their potential. If they were to do that based on last year, normally you'd say, well, they're not going to win more than 9 games. That would literally break all the data, right? Um, but I think that wins like this are foundational, and that
Yeah.
your team develops the sort of attitude where you sniff out these road games and inclement weather against stalwarts. Oh, we're supposed to lose this game. Right. We're going to do this every year now. Hey, 2-1 feels a whole lot better than whatever we've been doing for like
Yeah.
the last half decade. Because
Yeah,
it
that's
ain't been
great. I
that
can't remember the last time we'd had a winning record right now, like at this point in the
like
season.
early in the season. Yeah, the Colts historically come out to a slow start. Or at least, like we said, in the last 5-6 years, have just come out with a slow start, not really been able to put points on the board. Now, today weren't able to put the ball in in the end zone. But again, like you said, when you've got the highest paid kicker in the NFL, and he's 5 for 5, 4 of those over 50 yards, and sets a franchise record. And one of them's in overtime. Hey, man, you got yourself a big road win. And like I said, you think about other teams in the Colts spot, right? The Panthers are 0 and 3. That's where Frank Reich went. They're 0 and 3.
Texans are, yeah,
Bryce Young didn't play. And Carolina is 0 and 3, right? And then you look at Houston with CJ Stroud, and he's struggled in his first 2 games and had a coming out party today too. And looked really good. They beat the Jags by 20 points. Okay. But aren't they still 1 and 2? So like the Colts
yeah, they're
are,
still 1 and 2,
from my
and
perspective, after a few weeks of ball, miles ahead of these other teams that were in the same boat,
yeah, yeah,
where they
definitely.
had they had to reach and draft a quarterback too. So you're beating the other, in my eyes, you're beating the other teams that also had to take a quarterback. You just beat an AFC stalwart. Hey, we're getting to the point where I think we can beat anybody, right? Um, I don't know when the last time I've said I actually think the Colts can play with anyone, but if this defense stays healthy, man, they give you a lot of opportunities. They get the ball back. Um, whether it's Minshew or Richardson, whatever.
Yeah,
The Colts go obviously from a road game in outdoors in inclement weather to back home
yeah, back home against the Rams next week.
against the Rams. Now, the Rams are, I believe, the favorite going into that game, and just lost to the 49ers. That's on Thursday, right?
Yeah, yeah, they're
Yeah.
playing. They're playing kind of better than expected
Hmm.
so far this year. But I do think that's a game. That's a game and saying, hey, we could we could win this. Ah, the Rams are playing tomorrow against the Bengals.
Hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, they're even gonna have a like one less day of rest than we do. So that's a game I'm saying,
Hmm.
hey, if we just beat the Ravens, we should be able to beat the Rams at home. Hopefully.
Yeah. There weren't any additional injuries today where you say the Colts get worse because of injury. No. Uh, Puka Nakua, who's been the breakout wide receiver
Yeah.
for the Rams, showed up questionable for this game tomorrow. So that makes me think like, okay, if he doesn't play, that affects their relationship, their on-field relationship, which could affect their output on 6 days
Yeah,
instead of
6 days
7.
from them.
Um, so it is very much a week-to-week league. Uh, and obviously when guys like Ryan Kelly, Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor, right up the middle, are all are all out. Um, Keep in mind that Colts aren't supposed to be winning these games. The NFL is
Nah.
supposed to be a game of inches, and you only get 46 people on game day. You got to have everybody, especially your highest paid, most talented players, playing in order to win. They got to be playing at a high level too.
Yeah.
Um, hmm. Man, it's like the team holds a lot of promise given the early output, and it would just be really nice if everybody came back and played together nicely. We could actually,
That would just be a deal.
you know what I mean? If you can get them 3 players back, and like this team could be all
Yeah, and the
about it,
offense, yeah.
all about each other.
Yeah,
I
and the
don't
offense
think that I don't
starts.
think the Rams are a team the Colts can't beat.
Nah.
So the Colts could very easily start their season 3-1 and be looking at hosting the Titans, who just got housed by the Cleveland Browns, 27-3. Uh, Start that season 4-1. Who'd have thunk that? And then, like you
Yeah.
said, you only got to win if you can get 4 of the first 5, right? Now you have 12 games left, and you really need to go 4-8 to make the playoffs, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like 9, 10-ish wins, and you're in the
Yeah,
playoffs.
that gets you there. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this is in no way me over the course of a conversation going from, hey, nice win for the Colts to, hey, the Colts could win the Super Bowl. No, but it's not out of the question. There not enough bad things are happening. Like when you go through an entire game and it's like, I can't recall the cart coming for someone. Hey, that's a great win because you won on the road, you beat a good team, and I can't recall losing someone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that continuity and consistency and those same guys showing up and being available every day, that's what leads to wins, right? Um, and Juju Brents came out his first game as an NFL player and balled out today. So
Yeah. That is
that's even
always amazing to see.
supporting,
Yeah.
right? Young players finding success. Josh Downs, Juju Brents, those would be two that come to mind that played and played well today, and they're rookies. So the Colts are empowering their young draft picks to get out there and get after it, right?
Hmm.
And it won't be long before you get Anthony Richardson and Ryan Kelly back. Obviously, I guess we can kind of leave Jonathan Taylor in limbo. Apparently there's still rumors that he wants out of here. I can't figure that out.
Hmm.
I can't figure that out because like I said, that defense has given you plenty of opportunity. You know what I mean? If you're an offensive player,
Yeah.
hey man, that Colts defense plays real hard, and hey, that special teams, you know what I mean? Like, they're putting that offense in pretty good scoring position pretty frequently. Hey, if I was an offensive player, why wouldn't you want to go there? They're going to have a lot of
Yeah.
success. You know what I mean? Like now, Colts go into this game and get blown out. It's not nearly it ain't looking nearly as good, right? But
Yeah.
clearly, the Colts were able to win what would be considered. You'd call that an ugly game, I think, if it were just
Yeah.
raining a little
Yeah.
harder. You know what I mean? Like it just wasn't
Yeah.
raining
It's an
hard
ugly
enough.
game.
It was just rough conditions, you know what I mean? So, hey, um, on top of the AFC South in week 3, in year
Yeah. Who'd have
one
thought? Yeah.
of having a new head coach. Hmm. What do we say? Frank Reich's 0 and 3.
Oh
Hmm.
and 3. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's still a long ways to go, but
Long way to go.
so
Yeah,
far so good.
17
Yeah.
week
Long way
season
to
so
go.
far so good though. And like we said, you get a totally winnable game at home. I'm not
Yeah.
saying the Colts
Hopefully.
should win this game against the Rams, but it's like it's not the 49ers. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like you didn't get the big dog.
Yeah. It's a
Um,
game we should be like. Hopefully we win. I'm not gonna be like particularly mad if we don't.
right. Because
I
you're
just.
still such a youngest team in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
Um, that typically means you lose games like this, right? So that would kind of lend itself to the Colts dumping one at home to the Rams next week, right after I spoke on it too. That's kind of funny. But yeah, like you said, to kind of rehash that, not only did the Colts win, and that's great, but a couple things happened within their division that it's like actually it's even better weekend for the Colts because the Titans, a division opponent, got beat
Yeah.
real
Just
bad.
lost.
And then the team that's supposed to be like the best team in your division lost to
Also.
another
Yeah.
division opponent, and that was supposed to be your worst team, who the Colts have beat. So as far as the division goes, hey man, 5 stars. Colts had a great weekend. Let's try to repeat that.
Yeah.
And then like we said, there's really really nothing to talk about with the Pacers. Like we said, they're still a couple weeks from even their preseason starting. Um,
Yeah. So far, nothing to.
mhm. And for those of you that have been following along here to close out the podcast, I figure I'd talk about it a little. Um, I think our season is over. Um, hmm. There are a lot of contributing factors to this. I had a blast. For those wondering how I'm doing, I, I did what I wanted to do. You know what I mean? Um, it made me a little sad that we didn't have any support. Made me sad that there were no parents that thought, my kids might need water during this game or maybe food before it. I'm also sad that no teachers at that school stepped up and said there are only 2 coaches. Every team we play has a full staff. Maybe I'll volunteer for the football team. They seem like they need some people.
Hmm.
Additionally, we had no trainer on our sideline, and you're supposed to have an administrator at every game. And our last few games have all been on the road, and I hadn't seen anybody that's an administrator at my school at those games. So, as you can see, visibly, a lack of support uh, means that the kids aren't going to hang on when it don't feel like there's very many people on this boat anyway, right? So we struggled with numbers all year, and just had some people be a little too results oriented, had some young kids
Yeah.
be a little selfish, and unfortunately, coming home from this last game, a couple of my players who got a penalty in the game for cussing each other out, got into a fist fight outside of our locker room on camera. So it's not like we could just not like we would have brushed it under the rug, but you could absolutely see how people would just brush it under the rug. We're trying to have a football team. We had a couple kids get into a fight, and this is an inner city school. So we know that the hammer's coming for at least a couple of
Yeah.
them kids. It's a really unfortunate situation. It's certainly not how I expected this to end. I'm assuming change is coming, and like I said, I don't anticipate me losing my job. I didn't do nothing wrong. Uh, In
Yeah.
fact, I'm an offensive coordinator, and like I'd said last week, hey, my first year quarterback threw for over 300 yards and had 4 total touchdowns. Um, this week, not nearly the numbers, but that quarterback had probably had 150 yards rushing this
Yeah.
this past week. So I think we got a ball player, maybe just one, maybe two. Both of my seniors who listen to our podcast. So Jaden
Hmm.
and Alex, thank you for subscribing and listening to my stuff. It's unfortunate for them
Yeah.
because they were really dedicated and they came in. We realized really early in our football season that we weren't going to be able to practice like a regular 11-man football team would, 5, 6 days a week. It's just not feasible when you don't have the numbers. So we just figured we'd get a couple days off a week to, lick their wounds. We'll practice Monday, Tuesday, Friday, and most of our games are on Saturday, right? So what are we missing? Like a walkthrough, you know what I mean? So we try not to practice them too hard. Um, and when you're trying to teach people how to play football, part of what we were missing is we didn't have enough time to teach the kids toughness, right? And teach the
Yeah.
kids to want to tackle the right way, right? Because if left to our own devices, my kids will chase someone from behind all day, right? Or it's a
Yeah.
race. Now I'm trying to chase you down. That ain't no good. I need you to get in front of him, cut him off. You know what I mean? Push him back towards the
Yeah.
middle of the field. So yeah, we got a long way to go. Even if we were to make it, even if we are to make it, we got a long way to go. My head is held high. Like I said, I had fun. I feel like when I listen to the other coaches call plays, and keep in mind you only have 25 seconds, right, to get a
Yeah.
play in. Okay. I can hear my opponent on offense. The opponent is the other coach. And I can hear him yelling out formation and motion and then what they're doing on that play. When
Hmm.
we have offense, I'm just yelling one, run play one, one. And then there are some plays that we have. I did find it hilarious for the record. Here, we'll close with this. We were playing at a parochial school. So we were playing at Traders Point Christian School. It's a Christian high school on the northwest side of Indianapolis. They got their own campus. It's crazy. It looks like a small college.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. It's like a turf field. It was their senior night. Yeah, they put a whooping on us on senior night. Um, I forgot what I was gonna say. What was I talking about?
The senior day, sorry.
Oh, it's the fourth quarter. We're on defense. And I felt like the big problem that we had is that our quarterback was also playing middle linebacker and he's gassed the whole game. So that's kind of affecting your offense when your quarterback's winded. But for this past game, he didn't play much defense because my head coach listened to me and was like, well, maybe we need to put a little more points on the board and maybe we can be in these games. And he pointed out how we're playing against a Christian school, and one of our plays is called "Go to Hell" because it's like all hitches, and a hitch is the number 6 on our route tree. So if I was gonna call it out, it'd be like gun right 666. Well, I don't know about you, but I ain't saying that either. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm not yelling out 666. Like I'll put it like this. I play video games. I even play Diablo, right? Which is a game about like an
Yeah.
adventurer that's chasing angels into hell to fight the demons of hell. I hit item level 666 and I stopped playing with that character. I'm not even religious. It's just a thing, right?
Yeah.
So one of my players pointed out that I thought it was crazy. We're playing a Christian school and you're yelling out, "Go to hell."
Yeah.
And "get lucky" is all goes because that's 777. And I'm also not saying that. That's like a whole bunch of
Yeah.
syllables. 777. No, get
Yeah.
lucky. And it's funny because when you think about play calling and like your sort of attitude, I get to kind of act like nothing's happening with like my play calls are all dummy play calls, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, go to hell, get lucky. You know what I mean? The kids are like, all right. And they'll do it and they'll throw for 56-yard touchdowns. And you're like, all I told them was go get lucky. And we throw a 60-yard touchdown pass. You could have absolutely called out formation and motion and done all
Yeah.
that shit. Would you have got the same result? No, our opponent's getting a delay of game penalty. Like, I'll put it like this. We had 2 delay of game penalties this game. I don't understand how that happened when I'm sending one little phrase or you know what I mean,
Yeah.
3 words or less or one number to the huddle. I don't know how we got delay of game penalties, but our opponent this game they got like 9. Last week the opponent got like 6. So it's reinforcing my behavior, right? Where I'm just like, oh, keep your play call super simple, get it out to the huddle quick,
Yeah.
get it to the line. If we need to check out, we can check out, but like we need to get up there and ready to run a play, right? Um, I hope that's where I can't be so results oriented, right? Clearly, I did not have the resources, right, necessary to like be in
Yeah.
any of these games. None of these games that we played this year were we in at all. Like we were talking like down 22-6 in the first quarter of this last game we played. That's the closest we've been in the first quarter. And it has a lot more to do with the kids don't know what they're doing, so they don't know to play as a team. And so what'll happen is at the point of attack, the guy doesn't do his job. Well, now everybody's like, "Oh, that guy didn't do his job," and they're not trying to clean it up, right? They're not getting in there, making a tackle, making a play, and making a stop. Like I don't think we actually forced a punt until the second half of the last 2 games. But you think about it, like 6 games into a season, that
Yeah.
ain't good where every drive the opponent's got, they're going the full length of the field. You know what I mean? It really doesn't matter. But yeah, I'll probably end up with like a Patreon, GoFundMe, probably
Yeah.
looking for a head coaching job. I've definitely got a plan. I'm tired of uh not having any support, coaching with, being around a bunch
Yeah.
of bigots. It'd be really nice to head coach a program that just has a vacancy. You know what I mean? As opposed to obviously I'll stay at this school as long as they're going to have a football program. I just really wonder about that because I wonder what is the school going to do to better support athletics. And keep this in mind. We did a grade check at week 4 and said, "Man, the kids just don't seem very smart. We should check their grades." And found
Yeah.
out like most of these kids don't even know how to check their grades and don't have access to the programs that they're supposed to have access to. We had to have like upperclassmen teach the whole team how to get access to their grades and found out that like half the kids are failing out. We forfeited a game because of it. because we try to preach to these kids, the IHSAA requires you have a 2.0 GPA in order to play sports. And I told them, like, I'm not going to mess with you if you don't have a over 3.0 GPA. Like, if I don't see that you're excelling at school, I can't see what you're doing on the field as a net good for you, when I think you should be spending more time on your schoolwork, because that's more important. Something like 85% of your kids
Yeah.
will never play will never play football after high school. So you got to coach towards what most of these kids, I don't want these kids working at gas stations and warehouses. You know what I mean? I want them
Yeah.
getting getting good grades in high school and getting into college. And the saddest part about that is I got two senior football players. One, when I met this kid named Jaden, he told me he wanted to go to Clemson, not to play football. He wanted to go to Clemson.
Yeah.
Got like a 3.8 GPA. He's a shoe in, no problem. And I told him, you should register, you should apply to go to college.
Yeah.
And no one else had told them to apply to college. So, of course, I'll pat myself on the back. But he missed the early enrollment, the early application deadline for he's not going to Clemson now. Like, he's given up on that. He's decided he didn't want to do that. And that makes me sad, because it's like, wait, I'm not a teacher. I'm a stupid football coach. What am I doing asking my seniors, like, have y'all applied to college yet? You, you're into your senior year now. You should have already done that. And nobody's told you to do that. Man, that's
Yeah.
awful. What is happening? You know what I mean? So that's why I've kind of come away. Everybody acts like football is all X's and O's. You know what I mean? And when you're losing, it's your fault and stuff like that. And it's like, we were under duress. We
Yeah.
have far more things to worry about than a football result. I can tell you that if you're doing the other things in your life correctly, the result will come,
Yeah.
right? So of course I'm awful glad the Colts are off to a nice start here, right?
Yeah.
It's been pretty tough for my first season of coaching. But yeah, I appreciate you letting me tell you that on our podcast. I know it's not like the brightest way to close
Yeah.
one down, but like I said, I always try to think about where's my head at, and my head's like, hey man, you did really good. You went above and beyond.
Yeah. You were. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I started an athletic club. I told the kids, like, your opponents don't lift weights during the season. Come in here early. Let's get in here together. I'll get my wife involved. We'll come in and we'll work out, so the kids can see that someone else is willing to show up here consistently with the intent of getting better. And I try to excuse it and say, I got to be in better shape so I can yell for you on the sideline, right?
Hmm.
Um, and got a badge and key access to the school to be able to come in and do that. We've cooked them breakfast, because I found out the kids weren't getting a good breakfast, right? And most of these
Hmm.
kids aren't eating anything until after practice. And I don't know about you. I don't know if you played sports in high school, brother, but like, imagine waking up in the morning and not eating anything
Nah. Yeah. It's
until
insane. Yeah.
8 or 9 o'clock at night when you get out of sports practice. Um, so like I said, a lot of people that sit on the sideline and have not contributed to this game can look at my result and say, offense can only do so much, huh? Kind of got to be able to coach both sides of the ball. You can't get a head coaching job. And all I can think is, like, no, like, we raised the program standards and we made sure that most of our football players would be academically eligible to play basketball and wrestle. And no one else in the whole school's doing that. So again, I think we did a really good job, because we're not leaving that school where half the football team can't play basketball or wrestle. I think all but one kid is academically eligible at this point. I will pat myself on the back for that, because
Hmm.
we had half of them academically ineligible, and the best performing student of the kids that did not have the grades had two D's and two F's. That was the best performing student. So to get all of those kids to pass all of their classes the first 9 weeks of school just so they could wrestle and play football. This had nothing, or wrestle and play basketball. This didn't have nothing to do with us. We
Hmm.
we forfeited games because we didn't have the kids enough players with grades. And because it translates, right? If a kid's not a good student, he's not going to be a good football player.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you have to be a good student to understand, like, we have to think about what the opponent has seen of ours on offense. And then we have to look at our personnel and say, do we need to put in a different formation and a different group of plays based on who we got available to us this week? I think we do. And then you got to have a plan for when that kid goes on a field trip the day of a game and decides not to play.
Yeah.
Right. Those are the kinds of problems that you're going to have. First year program, no resources and support, right? Like, these are the kind of problems that you have. It's more like the kids see failure and they're so used to seeing it that the play is over for them now, right? And it's baked into their mind. He's gonna mess up, and as soon as he does, oh, it's not my job.
Yeah.
Instead of rally to the football, you know what I mean? Play to the whistle, right? Like, those things are out of the window when they're preying on each other's downfall, right? Because that's the environment that they've come up in. That's so dog eat dog world, right? It's an unfortunate reality of coaching sports in the inner city is that these kids have no things. You know what I mean? So obviously, again, this is all my fault. We would have never had a season if I hadn't donated a big old helmet to the program. I had a big 2XL helmet, and that big old lineman we got, if he didn't have that helmet, he couldn't have played and we wouldn't have been able to play football this year. So this is all my fault. I did it to myself. So
Hmm.
this is this has been uh this has been the Coltist. Again, this is
Episode
season
3.
season 2, episode 3. Hey, Colts are 2-1 and atop the AFC South. Got a beatable LA Rams team in 6 days on short
Coming
rest.
up, yeah.
Should be able to
Hopefully,
get that. And we'll be back
yeah.
here
Hopefully, we're
going,
getting
oh
back
my
with a win.
gosh, we're
Yeah.
3-1. What is happening?
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. So hey, have a great week. Enjoy the rest of the games. And hey,
See
we'll
you next.
see you
Yeah.
after next week's game.